Hello, everyone. My name is Duncan. I'm joined by Sloan.
Hello.
And Jeff.
What's up?
And we are Commander's Pod. We welcome you today. We have a couple subjects we want to talk about. We're going to talk about things that don't do what you think it does, as always. We're going to talk a little bit about Modern Horizons 3, what we think of it, the leaks, the official stuff, just kind of go over generally our thoughts on the whole thing. Jeff's going to talk about what's aggravating him. And, so anyway, let's get right into it. Anybody got a tale from the table they want to share?
Yeah, actually, I have one. It kind of touches on something we talked about in a previous episode. Basically, we were playing over the weekend, Duncan and I was waiting for the game to end so I could join the pod. And one of the players, Duncan, goes to cast something, and it was an ETB effect, so he had to name his targets. So he had two targets to name, though. So when he named the first target, the person immediately responded and deflecting swatted the first target. And then because they didn't wait, he just retargeted the same thing, and it still ended up dying anyways. And then the player was like, well, you can't do that. You have to name them both at the same time. And he just simply looked at the player and said, well, you didn't give me a chance to name both of them at the same time. So therefore, if you're going to break the rules, so be it. So
if you're going to go out of turn, you're going to pay for it.
Exactly. So instead of him taking care of something else, which that person was a problem, he then actually got two removal spells on the same thing when technically he should only have been able to target it once. But because the person kind of jumped the gun and didn't let him resolve the spell completely and take time to do priority checks, they ended up shooting themselves in the foot. So
that's a great story. I love these stories.
Yeah. Well, I felt like I could tell that one because, like I said, I was waiting for the game to end. So I was kind of an outside party, just kind of sitting there waiting. And it was definitely interesting to see the interaction happen because the person was so quick to deflecting swat it and think they got away with it. And then you're like, I just retarget your thing with the second one. Yeah. So it was kind of funny, but it's definitely one of those moments. And this is a person who's been playing a little while. It's not like they're new. I'm sure Duncan would have explained it to them if they were a newer player, but they aren't. They're more of a veteran player. They just were so focused on trying to win and not have their key piece die.
Right.
Yeah, next time we do one, I have one for Duncan too, where we played a couple weekends ago. But we'll talk about that on another episode.
Yeah. So,
well, and to be clear, so I don't get people going, oh, if a thing says you need two targets, you can't do the same thing twice anyway. This was one instance each. I had a doubling effect that doubled the triggers. So That's why I got two, and that's why the second one can target the same thing because it is a separate event. So just so you know. But again, we've said it before. We will say it again. Don't give up your right away. Wait till it's the appropriate time to announce your response. Don't give out information that people would not have otherwise.
Right. Because it probably will come back to bite you.
Unless you want to make it on the podcast.
Right. Then go ahead and do that. If you want to be talked about, then yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So now we're going to talk about how do you deal with a problem player? I mean, that player, that's not really a problem for me. They allowed me to do what I wanted to do. But a problem player, somebody who, scoops in response to something they shouldn't really scoop to just so you don't get an effect, or somebody that just throws tantrums. So how do you deal with players when they are just causing the game not to be fun?
So we're talking about, because I did want a definition of problem because we went over our notes for the episode. So when he said problem, just to get a clear definition, this is not someone who's like running away with the game or anything like that. This is more of a personality more.
Somebody who, among all the members of the table, this person is just not fitting in. They're not following the same guidelines. They're not, they playing in the right spirit.
They kind of have
they don't play in the right spirit. They may be mean. They may be nasty. They may, like I said, scoops just so they don't have to let you get things.
Right.
Well, and it's good to understand the question too. Is it what should we do or what do we actually do?
What should
because those are many times very different things.
What should you do?
I would say the order is you should probably try to address the person like one-on-one and just be like, hey, listen, just so you know, like what you're doing is taking away from the game that other people are playing, and you're doing things that, for example, scooping at instant speed technically is not a rule that says you can't do it, right? Technically,
But like in my other play group, we have a table rule, and this player just blatantly, there's a player that will just blatantly be like, man, I'm scooping. What are you going to do about it?
So I'm going to start at a different area. I'm going to say you got to start with yourself, because if you're going to be able to do anything, you got to kind of know where you are, because there are certain people that are going to trigger you differently.
Sorry about that.
Someone just broke into our house.
Yeah. So, someone broke into our house. They broke into our podcast. How dare they? I think you need to know yourself, because you need to understand how you're going to respond to a certain person before you do it. If you have a really hard time responding to someone who is not logical and you're going to get frustrated yourself, it's probably not worth leaning into that. However, if you think there's someone else in the group that connects well with that person, you might wait till afterwards, talk to another person that can connect better with that person and say, hey, here's the struggle I'm having. And you know what? If it continues, I really don't want to continue to play. Can you help me? And just knowing that that person might have better luck communicating than you would, given your own personal issues.
So let me just give you a scenario. So you're playing a game. You all know each other, so you know each other's decks, and they pull out decks, and you pull out decks that all match up. Mm-hmm. And a couple of you are playing new decks. And you play the game, and on turn 4, one of those players wins with a Thassa's Oracle, and they just tutored the turn before, right? So maybe you and your other 2 players turn to that player and say, hey, we weren't playing CEDH. We're not trying to win turn 4. Another player tutored. They didn't tutor for a win, and the player just kind of laughs about it.
I mean, honestly, you might not even be able to tutor for a win on turn 4. Like, there are a lot of decks where it's like, I can tutor for a really good card. It doesn't guarantee I'll win.
Well, CEDH decks you can.
Yes, of course, right.
So in this instance, like...
but what I'm illustrating is it wasn't just their choice to tutor for a specific card. It was the deck itself.
Oh, yeah, that was the deck. Yeah. And that was the defense. Well, I just built this deck, and it just happened to do this. No. You deliberately tutored for that win.
Right. I mean, and here's something I will say, too. Now, granted... every situation obviously is going to be different. But for example, one of the things that I do when I build a deck is I always try to put in one instant win combo. Whether it's a 2 or 3 card, or there's a couple that I have one that's a 4 card combo where if I get it, it will instantly win, right? Now, my point is the entire deck like that where they have 7, 8 tutors, they have 5 to 6 instant win. Like, that's the point. If it was this one card, now granted, Thassa's Oracle combos are known to be, that's a CDH win. Everyone knows it. That's how you do it. You do the the demonic consultation.
This one was Tainted Pack.
So Tainted Pack. So same thing with Tainted Pack minus. It's a little bit more difficult because you have to have literally one of every single card in order to do it correctly in your deck, including
which
basics.
Is a build for CEDH.
Right. So if that was the case, I mean, I would say they probably knowingly brought a higher power level because it's really hard to explain
But they're saying, no, I just built this, and no, look, it just happened. No, that was a specific build. It was a specific tutor. It was a specific way that you played.
Is this person normally do things like this?
So yes and no.
Or is this an isolated? If it's an isolated incident of ignorance, it's one thing.
Right. No, it's not ignorance. It's willful, and it's the other defense is I needed one win.
Well, and I will say too, is this a new player or is this more of a veteran player?
No, it's a veteran. But,
okay, so
I don't want to harp on this one player. I wasn't trying, but my point was, we all said, hey, you know what? We have played decks that might have that combo in it against, and we just choose not to play a Thassa's Oracle win. That's a very quick and easy way to win, and we have had instances, we've had it in our hand, and we've just made the choice that this is not appropriate for this game, the way that everybody's playing. It's a slower game. I'm not going to play this. I'm going to pretend like it's not in my hand, it's not in my deck. Mm-hmm. Maybe if turn 15 nobody's won, maybe I'll play it then,
I think what this scenario is good because we could break it down in a couple different ways. One, I think there's a level to which you sort of have to ask the question, what's motivating this? And it sounds like part of what's motivating this is I'm not ever getting the joy of winning, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lack of experience for this person. And it's like, okay, well, I feel for that. How can I help solve that? Well, you can try to meet with that person and help them understand how to make better decisions. Some of that you can and can't do because some people just stick to their bad decisions. The other thing you could do is lend them an appropriate deck that's maybe easier to play. There are some decks where, you give them the Dragon, it's like, okay, how much can you really screw this up? You're going to ramp and then play big dragons. There's not a ton, the interaction's pretty simple. It's not that hard. It's like, here, try this. You can win with this deck, get the experience you want, and do it in a way that's not going to ruin the game for everyone else.
Well, and so we all tried to say many of these same things. And we tried to say, well, look, if you wanted to play that type of game, you could have played that type of game.
We have decks.
If you were like, hey, I'm not winning, we've tried to tell you before ways that you can try and win. We can try to make you a better player and tell you the more ideal ways to play when you fall short, of winning and what you could have done differently to win. So what we have had to do is just realize that this person plays that way, and we have expressed our discontent at it, and we either have to decide to play with this person or not. And
I think
some days I won't. Some days I'll sit at a different table. It's just depends on what I'm willing to put up with. The person overall is not a bad person. It's just they do these things and scoop when somebody was going to get something too good from them on an effect on an attack or on an effect on a spell.
Right. I mean, I think to get back to the core of the question, which is how do you deal with it? I think, like Jeff said, there's steps in correcting, or at least going to this person. Right. I don't want to say correcting because maybe they're not intentionally doing it, but there's just steps that should be taken in regards to doing that. I think the first thing is make sure, one, everyone else in the group kind of agrees with you, like, this is happening a lot. Is like everyone else is upset by this and frustrated, and everyone else is like, we could care less, it doesn't matter. Then, maybe it's just something that you just need to go tell them, let them know, hey, I think that's kind of, to me, you're taking away if I'm doing something and you decide to instant scoop in response. That way I don't get that ability. That's a little upsetting because I've just wasted all my resources, and then your response is I'm going to keep you from doing it, which again, you're allowed to, but if that's how you're going to play, I probably just won't be playing with you as often, and maybe have that one-on-one. If it's more of the whole group agrees with you and it's like this person does this constantly, again, still talking to him and letting him know, but then also letting him know if you guys do decide to set up table rules of, if you instant scoop, great, the effect still goes off, it still gets he still get to do everything they were going to do to you originally. If it's stealing your permanents or getting to cast your we're still going to let them do it. So you instant scooping isn't stopping this ability, just so you're aware. It just makes it easier for them to win, because whatever they were going to if they were going to target you with whatever the steal was, they now have one less target to do with it. So I mean, there's ways to go about it. Ultimately, if the person is just blatantly to the point of where they're very aggressive about it and they're very upsetting and very abrasive about it, I would just move to another pod and I would just find a different group to play with, or just not play with that one player.
Well, like I said, I have chosen before not to sit at the table.
Right.
And what we have just come to the realization is that this person is just going to do these things. It's very impulsive.
Right.
And maybe they have impulse control issues, But so we don't just ignore it. We address it.
Right.
And we set boundaries at that point, and we say, hey, going forward tonight, this is what we expect.
So
sure.
here's one of the things that will typically happen in like group settings with people who are struggling to make good decisions. There's typically two things that will happen. One, we begin to teach people the wrong time to respond. And what I mean by that is, like, you imagine you have children and you've seen that person in the supermarket who is screaming at their kids and their kids aren't listening. They're screaming at them. You're like, how is this kid not listening? Well, that kid has been taught that until the parent's hand comes up, they're not going to obey. That's when it's time to obey, because the screaming starts right away. In the same way, if you have a person in a group, sometimes what will happen is the group wanting to do the right thing, when something goes awry that they don't like because they haven't dealt with the internal frustration they have, it comes out as a lot of yelling or frustration or laughing, really high energy correction that person can't really internalize because it's just coming at them 1,000 miles per hour.
Well, we've also...
The other thing that people do that, I guess I do want to hear what you have to say on that, but the other thing that people do is they enable. And so we will make excuses like this person can't learn, or this is just the way they are. Instead of setting real concrete boundaries where, hey, okay, here's the rules of the game. All right, you broke the rule. I'm not gonna play with you again for quite a while. And then when we choose to come back and play again, then it's like, okay, here's the rules. If you do it again, concrete boundary. Because believe it or not, people, they need those boundaries. And every time we make an excuse and we don't keep to the boundary, we teach a bad behavior. So that's sort of the thing that I see that happens in groups sometimes, those couple of things.
Right. Well, so what we've done is just, so this last time when this happened the other day, we pointed out that if you did this is called pub stomping. Mm-hmm. You pull out a deck that is deliberately way overpowered for the decks the other people are playing, so you can win by turn 4 or 3 or 2 or whatever. So you can get that win and cackle to yourself that you won. If you do that at a table of people you don't know, the best case scenario probably is going to be they say, okay, good win. Please sit at a different table.
Right.
That's probably the best case you can hope for. Maybe they might all pull out decks that they trounce you with.
Right.
And I'll gang up on you the rest of the night and just teach you a lesson that way. I've seen that happen a lot. But it's never going to end with them going, oh, good job, way to go, nice win.
Yeah, no one ever appreciates it when you pull veils over their eyes. Very rarely.
I think the hardest thing I hear about that, though, is a person obviously knew what they were doing was wrong, but their need to have some sense of success was so high that they're willing to frustrate and aggravate their
and how much of it is for the attention at all? Maybe the whole thing, the winning and the behavior is just, oh, look at me, I'm the center of attention.
That person may be lacking attention in their life. So these are the things where sometimes, guys, we have to take a step back and go, all right, magic is not real, but the person across from me is. Is there something going on? I've had a situation at my home where someone got upset once, put a hole through my door. And that's challenging, but you have to love the people through that because they're in a process of something.
I'm sure that person was completely justified.
The door had it coming.
It did. That door was a dick.
They may be in process in an area where if you choose to make this a big issue, you have to pay for my door, you have to do this, how dare you, something like that, you're going to miss the opportunity to care for that person through their life, which is real. So just, guys, I know it's like we're talking about magic, and you guys are here to hear about magic, and we're going to get real into magic, but just if you could hear my heart on this, it's that you have to understand that is a game, and it doesn't matter, but the person across from you does matter.
And so this person may listen to this podcast, I don't know, but the other thing I want to point out, they're not alone in this.
No.
Sloan and I were sitting at a game that same night later on, and a much more seasoned player. We all had been playing for a while and gone back and forth. We'd played a few games, and somebody played an ability that allowed them to get something back from any graveyard. So we all put things out and show what we have in our graveyard, including this other player.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious that the thing this other player has in their graveyard is the best
by
thing.
far the best thing.
By far.
Kadama of the East tree. Yeah.
And so, that's what was selected. Well, the moment those words come out, the player is like, nope, you're not getting that, I scoop.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to instantly win. Probably they were going to win, but it wasn't an instant win.
I mean, it definitely would have sped up the game for sure.
But that doesn't matter because if that player does that, you go, okay, great, you scooped, you're gone. Hey, just make a token. You got Kodama of the East Tree.
Well, we didn't do that, but we did. But here's the funny thing is that we all were like, all right, whatever, we let it go. And so then the player who played the effect said, well, then I target Duncan's this thing in their graveyard. And the player that scooped is like, well, you can't do that. You're already selected. And I turned to them and I said, I'm sorry. We don't allow crappy scoops. He can do his effect again.
Right. I mean, we even actually tried saying to just make a Kodama. He said, no, you can't do that because it's not here. He couldn't have targeted it.
Yeah, but then I say, but you're not here. You're out of the game, so you don't have a voice.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just one of those situations.
You chose childishly, so sorry.
Right. And so ultimately it didn't matter. That person ended up winning because they were so far ahead. We had 0% chance anyways.
But again, what we're talking about is what do you do about the player? We're not talking about can you go on. We're talking about what do you do about this person who does this. You, in my opinion, you need to deal with the person. Like, hey, that was not right. We're going to continue without you. Your opinion now does not matter because you've chosen to behave this way.
Right. Well, I made it clear that it was not appreciated what they did.
Right.
And the person sat there for about another 5 minutes and just kind of packed up their stuff and left. I think they kind of...
I've taken. I mean,
was
Duncan
late, too.
knows. Duncan knows for sure. I've taken months off from Magic because, to me, giving it a break rather than dealing with, like, I'm not going to go hang out somewhere where there are people that are salty and angry and upset and doing this type of shenanigans. I just don't need that in my life. I have a decent life, so if I'm going to take time out of my life to go play a game, I want to actually have fun. I don't care if I win every game, but I want to have fun with the people, laugh and joke and have a good time. So when it's not that, I could do without it. So yeah, really what the point we're trying to get to, and what's really interesting to me is I wrote this topic before either of those incidents ever happened.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of interesting. It both came up recently, but
Yeah.
You try all the things we've talked about. You try talking to them, you try talking as a group to them, you try talking to them one-on-one. You kind of point out, different things they could have done to maybe not do these things, and hey, we've all agreed on this. Eventually you have to get, firmer and firmer, and you just need to set boundaries.
Yeah, whilst trying to stay humble.
Right.
Like, remember, you're not past beyond doing stupid things
and
either.
You also have to weigh, is this problem something that we cannot play around? Is this something that we cannot deal with? And what we kind of realized in the first scenario was it doesn't matter. If they're going to scoop, if they want to win that way, that's fine. They can have their one win that way.
Yeah.
We're not going to give them a chance to do that again the rest of the night. And now we're all probably going to be probably a little more reactive to that player than we would have been normally. So it's probably not going to go well for them. But, and if they scoop at the inopportune time, we can do things where we say, no, you get to do the effect again, or you get all the things you would have gotten anyway. We can do those things. It doesn't, we continue to not let it go necessarily, but we're also like this person's family to another member in the group, and it's like you just kind of got to deal with it.
There's also positive reinforcement. Like, if you have someone behave that, just help them win the next game, and then they're like, oh, well, this is what it feels like to win the right way. I'd like this feeling again rather than the other one. So, see if you can find ways to do that too, where it's less of the negative correction, but more of like a positive. Let me give you a positive path.
I can tell you in this particular instance, I have tried that technique and gotten stabbed in the back for my troubles. So, it's just
literally,
and
he had a. It was really.
I mean, the other thing too, I would be mindful while going through all this is also check the status of the player. If they're a brand new player, again, they probably don't know that Tainted Pact, Thassa's Oracle is kind of known as a CDH if they're a newer player. If they're a more seasoned and veteran player, maybe they don't follow, CDH stuff at all, and they just saw it and they put it together themselves. Like, oh, that's a cool combo. And they don't. There are certain instances where that could be the case, where they're just ignorance is bliss, right? They're unaware that that's a super high power combo to win.
They're fully aware.
No, I'm not saying this person. I'm saying when you're dealing with this in your play group, if you are dealing with it, just ask them. Just say, hey, do you know that's a competitive level combo to win a game,
leave
right?
Room for ignorance.
Oh no, I had no idea. I don't follow competitive scene. I just built this deck, and I was looking up combos, and I just happened to have these cards. And I was like, oh, okay, great. That's a great combo to put in here. Like, it could just be, again, ignorance is bliss. So I'm not saying in your instance that was the case. I'm just saying if you guys do end up dealing with this yourselves in your play groups, just keep that in mind. Like, maybe just be wary of the status of the person. If they're a newer player, or if they're someone who doesn't really follow competitive stuff that well, or they're not really, they have a couple of decks and they kind of just rotate them in and out and build new stuff all the time. Maybe they just didn't know. And always start there. Like Jeff said, be humble and start at the very, very beginning, and always give them the benefit of the doubt at the beginning, and just kind of work your way up the ladder, I guess, as it were, and see, if maybe it was just 100% unintentional. They didn't know that existed. In your case. So just be mindful of that, and
it is important. Don't jump to conclusions.
Yeah, don't just assume, oh, that's a CEDH combo. You're a dirty, horrible human being. How dare you put that in a casual game? They're like, this is literally my first game of Command I've ever played in my life. I had no idea. Like, how do you know?
I net decked this.
Yeah, I net decked this.
I didn't even know how to play it. I did this on accident.
Yeah. You don't know. So always take those steps, like we kind of mentioned, and go through it in a humble but mindful way, and make sure you're, like Jeff said, paying attention to the person that's real, not the game that isn't real, that you guys are playing. So
right. So, just I thought this was a good topic because you run into different scenarios, and there could be a ton of other ones. We talked about a lot of different things, but you could have a player that just isn't playing by the same rules as everybody else. Maybe they have weird way of shuffling and always manage to get the same cards, but the same tactics.
That's called cheating.
It is called cheating, and there are people that do it, and they may not. Again, it's probably for similar reasons. They don't feel like they win enough, and they want attention or whatever it is.
Right.
So I'm just saying all the things we've talked about.
I think we can sum this up. Like, guys out there, just be better.
Right. 100%. Be better.
Yeah, just be better.
Just, when you're thinking to yourself, is this better? Do it. Like, just be better.
Yeah.
That's all.
But anyway, it can be pretty aggravating. Well, what about you, Jeff? What's aggravating
Oh,
you?
my gosh. What's aggravating me today? People in hammocks in the middle of the afternoon on the intercoastal. Like, that's just not fair. So I'll set this up. So I'm at a business lunch at a place called Pops, which is a restaurant on the intercoastal. Beautiful. We look across from our business lunch where we have to return to work afterwards. And this gentleman has set up this wonderful hammock. He's out in the intercoastal in the beautiful water. And then he goes up and just lays in his hammock. And I'm like, what kind of life is this, man? What am I doing with my life that this dude's living like this on a Monday?
So was this in the restaurant?
No, across the intercoastal. So intercoastal is a waterway. So across on the other side, he's living his best life.
So it was his house, and you're very upset at how
it's not his house. It was just it's a beach type deal. So sorry, I'm trying to get in. There we go. We made it. The editor locked himself out of the room. I locked him out. How did I lock you out of the room?
Push the button. Don't put this on me. Yeah, I did hear beeping when you came in, and I wondered what it was.
Oh, I locked
that
you
makes
out.
sense.
Wonderful. Okay. So yeah, that's what's aggravating me today is people who get to enjoy that beautiful life in the middle
That
of
is
the day.
not what we talked about. But okay.
That is...
I can't relate to that at all, and I'm happy for the other person.
I mean, I can be aggravated at the fact that people get to go out and have lunch, and I get to stare at my computer and eat at my desk.
Then you work at the exact same location.
It's true.
That could be your aggravating, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
That's
it's all
fun.
degrees, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
There's
Some
always
people's
some guy in a hammock that's got it better than us.
there's some people's is legitimate and some people's is superficial.
But I don't think that was as aggravating as most of Jeff's things, but we'll go with it. But speaking of things that don't do what you think they do, let's talk about removing abilities, right? Things that remove abilities.
Yeah, we are about to get into the depths of Magic, which I think most veteran players don't even know exists.
Right. So there's some interactions in Magic, and we're not going to get down to the nitty gritty on this. We're going to give you the basics, and you're going to be able to go and look it up for yourself.
Right.
And dive as deep as you want, because this rabbit hole goes very deep. Mm-hmm. And you just go as deep as you want to get the understanding level you want. But basically, let's talk about the example of humility. And let's say Blood Moon was out. Okay. Blood Moon.
2 in a red.
Only
Two in a
really
red.
difficult people are playing
2 in
this
a
card,
red,
by
that's
the way,
right.
Duncan.
What's that?
Only very difficult people would play this terrible card, Blood Moon.
Oh, no, this should be played every deck, and it will be more soon as Modern Horizons has something similar. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But
Two in
it
a
says
red.
all non-basic lands are now mountains.
Right.
Okay? It's a board state effect.
Enchantment.
So all are mountains, but now humility comes out. And humility says all creatures are 1/1s with no abilities. Well, that removes the ability from... I'm sorry, Blood Moon's a bad example. I'm sorry.
You want Magus of the Moon.
Magus of the Moon.
Magus of the Moon.
Magus
yeah.
of the Moon. That's why it's 2 in a row. Magus of the Moon says the same thing as Blood Moon. Non-basic lands are now mountains. Humility says creatures are 1/1s with no abilities. And so what would you think would happen? Well, most people would say, well, now Magus has no abilities. The lands go back to
Therefore, everything goes back
whatever
to...
they were.
Yeah.
Nay. Because of something called layers.
Right.
I think it's knee, by the way. Knights that say knee.
That's true. Magus of the Moon does not further turn lands into mountains, but the ones they have already done remain mountains.
Right.
So
wait, if you remove it, though, that effect stops.
Yes,
but not
if
if you change
Correct.
the card.
Right.
Correct.
Because of layers, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. Jeez Louise.
Words are hard.
They are very hard, especially late in the day. But yeah, the reason why is because of which, again, most players are unaware this even exists. This is something
for sure.
that is...
This is something I only learned of recently. And I asked Sloan to do the segment later that will get into more details about what they do.
Yeah.
But basically, in a gist, the two things happen on the same layer. Because of how they fell, any lands that come after humility will not be mountains if they're non-basic.
But the ones that are
But the
already
ones
out...
were already modified, therefore
They remain.
stay in mountains. Okay, so that's just kind of something to realize. We'll go into layers just briefly later to just tell you what layers do what.
Right.
And by the way, if you're in a game and you're dealing with Blood Moon and humility, go to a different game.
Oh no, that
You're
sounds
with
like
the
a great game.
You're with the wrong group for casual. Just go ahead and find a new group that is not as disgusting.
Or
That is perfectly casual.
be better.
Neither of
Yeah,
those
be
things.
better, find better friends.
Neither of those things will be played in CEDH.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
because they're
That's not true.
Maybe
They absolutely
Blood
play
Moon.
those things in
Maybe Blood Moon, but most people aren't going to waste time with humility. They're going to remove it, whatever the problem is, or they're going to win.
Yeah, because a lot more CDH is removal and win cons. They don't really care about board state stuff. They just want to kill things and win.
Yep. But so that's just kind of that and how that works.
Yeah.
And there are similar things that do the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear what the layers do, you can kind of get an idea. And people say, well, no, it's timestamp. No, timestamp is only if the effect is on a different layer. That's when you use timestamp to figure it out.
Right.
So
Which, again, we'll go a little bit more into later.
So anyway, so that doesn't do what you think it does. But now let's talk about Modern Horizons 3.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
So this set is looking like a baller. I mean, this thing is just, there have been leaks galore, not the official spoilers, but leaks.
Right.
I mean, tons and tons, and they are spicy to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, they must really wanted Eldrazi's to come back, because like every other card or every third card I see that's being leaked is a freaking Eldrazi.
Well, so they do, and one of the decks that's coming out is Eldrazi.
Right.
And people were very unsatisfied with the Eldrazi deck that came with Commander Masters. They were hoping for much more
Potency.
Actual
Potency.
Eldrazi. They were
Right.
hoping for some actual Eldrazi.
And because of how the design works at Wizards, these two things were deliberately spaced apart like this. So they teased with the Commander Masters, and then you get the payoff in the Modern Horizons 3. So we're going to talk about some of these leaks. We're going to talk about some of the cards that really stand out to us. And we're going to talk about Eldrazi. And then we're going to talk about how we feel about it, how we feel about the leaks, and just kind of overall our feeling on this. But one that I wanted to talk about, and it's nothing crazy powerful like some of the stuff we're talking about, but Vexing Bauble. This is one of the things that have been leaked. Again, none of the things that have leaked can we guarantee you are real, because they weren't official spoilers.
Right, yeah.
And we're going to talk about one that I really think and I hope is not real. But we'll get to that one. We'll save that
Wow,
one
I can't
for the
believe Duncan
end.
said that. It must be really bad.
It's really bad. But
or it's not going to be that bad.
yeah, no, it's really bad.
It'll be
But anyway,
okay.
It would just be bad against blue players, which is why he doesn't want it.
That's great.
Right.
so but Vexing Bauble. This is an artifact that costs one colorless mana, or one generic mana rather.
Yeah.
Whenever a player casts a spell, the mana that was if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good effect.
Yeah,
We've
that's
seen
an
it
ability
before.
they started doing more
Yep.
recently, yeah.
But the other artifact that does it costs 2, I believe.
And there's some creatures that do it now.
Right. But they cost more.
Yeah,
You're getting this for
4.
1.
Yeah.
But that's not all this does. You can pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it, and draw a card.
Okay. It's a little Mind Stone effect.
Yeah. So this is great. because maybe you want to play something that costs no mana, but you've now played something that blocks you. Well, you can draw the card and remove it.
I think the nice thing about this thing too is that it's since it's a 1-drop, if you do get it out early, like it stops people from going off early, and then once you've kind of felt like comfortable, you can then just sack it to get a card later. And it's like, all right, this isn't really helping anything anymore, and so you can then sack it to draw a card. So I don't think that's crazy.
I just
strong.
think it's a good card.
I think it is a good card.
Yeah.
Again, they made it colorless, so we'll see how quickly it gets added to every single deck.
Oh yeah, for sure. Unless your deck is all around casting.
I don't think it will get added
right
to every single deck.
But I will point out,
stronger
it totally shuts off plot.
Right, yeah, that new mechanic that came out. Because it does, plot is specifically you cast it for free from exile, right?
Yep.
Right.
Which means that no mana was spent to cast it.
Yeah.
So, because the mana you spent to plot it does not count as mana.
Yeah, a lot of the, like, I actually, Duncan got to experience this weekend on his birthday weekend. By the way, happy birthday. Belated birthday.
Yeah, thanks for the gift.
Yeah, the gift was I spanked Duncan in Magic about 4 times, and it was great. It was glorious. I built a Prosper deck. I got the Precon from one of my buddies for house sitting for him. I upgraded it a little bit, and I specifically...
So your gift was to beat him with a very easy commander?
A little bit, but the cards I put in there, they weren't like crazy mind-blowing strong cards. I just picked Prosper because I was like, I don't really have anything that casts stuff from exile and gets benefits from it, so I was like, sure, I'll build him. I didn't realize that he was considered a CEDH commander, and like he's top tier.
He's one of the best.
He's like top 10, I think, ranked like overall. Yeah. So I built this Prosper deck. The first night I debuted it, I only got 1 win with it, but I was like, I'm still trying to learn the mechanics, whatever. But one of the things that he does is he likes to steal a lot of stuff and cast it from exile, but there are some cards in there that say you may cast those spells from free. Like Atali's in there, the dragon that whenever it attacks, exile top card of each opponent's library or player's library, I think, and then you can cast any number of those cards for free. So that's a great counter to that. So if you have decks that are going to be like that are based around casting from exile for free or casting from the top of your library for free, that even shuts off Bull of Citadel. I just realized too, because you pay life to cast them.
Right. No.
You don't spend mana.
Yep.
Yeah.
It shuts off a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So that is a cool little card. Definitely. I don't think it's too strong. I do think it's a good idea to making it a 1-drop, maybe a little too quick. Maybe.
Oh, I think
maybe
it's great.
2. Yeah, of course you do. You're a horrible human being.
Yeah, one of the cards that I really like is one called Ugin's Labyrinth. This is a land. And again, this is where like stuff's just getting kind of out of control. It's imprint. When Ugin's Labyrinth enters the battlefield, you may exile a colorless card with mana value 7 or greater from your hand. Add colorless. If the card exiled with Ugin's Labyrinth, if a card is exiled with Ugin's Labyrinth, add 2 instead. So again, this is a land that taps for 2 mana pretty easily.
Well, but it's a land you pay
casual
3
commander.
for.
No, you don't pay anything.
You have to pay to face down, don't you? Does it say disguise 3?
You imprint it, but then the last ability is
not disguise.
You can tap this and return the exiled card to its owner's hand. So yes, you have to exile.
There's another card that I was looking at the other day. It was not from Iron Horizons 3 that does a similar thing, but you have to disguise it. It costs 3. So yeah, that's much better.
It's very powerful.
Yeah,
it's going to be one of those chase cards.
I mean, that's definitely going to be in an Eldrazi deck, clearly, because it's.
I hope it's in the commander deck. That'd be amazing.
So the one that I stumbled across I thought was pretty cool is the Necro Bloom. It's a 1 white, black, green. It's a legendary creature plant, 2/7. And it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 0/1 green plant creature token. If you control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token instead. So nothing too crazy. The second ability, though, I thought was pretty cool. Land cards in your graveyard have dredge 2.
Oh my god!
So I was like, that's a pretty cool way to dig through your deck and get stuff back from your. So a little bit of a cool ETB landfall deck. But also, you want a bunch of unique names, so probably less basics than you would like to run. But because you want to have multiple different names, but then token generator, so doing stuff with that also. So I thought that was a pretty cool card and a cool idea to put dredge on lands. I was like, I don't think that's ever been done before from my recollection. So I thought that was a cool card, and I think that's going to be a cool commander that you're going to see some people start playing.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds spicy. So they brought back some free spells for this one.
Ugh.
You love the free spells. I don't know why.
I mean, I'm going to play them. They're in the game, but the power creep is real, man.
So one of the ones, of course, the blue one, I like. Flare of Denial. Costs 1 blue if you want to pay that. But if you don't, you may sacrifice a non-token blue creature rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Counter target spell.
Crazy. And there's a whole cycle of them. So it's not just that one. Do you have I know there's a white one that I have pulled up here.
Okay.
Do you have that one, Duncan?
I don't have it in my list because I thought you were going to go over that one.
Yeah, I got it here. Hold on. So that one is Flare of Fortitude, and it's the same. You may sacrifice a non-token white creature rather than pay its cost. Until end of turn, your life total can't change, and permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible.
Oh, that's like, what's it called? The green one.
Heroic Intervention?
There you go, Heroic Intervention.
Yeah, except it's free.
Yeah, and you get your life total can't change. The other one is just creatures get hexproof and indestructible.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's just and that goes in a lot of white decks. So those cards are crazy. Again, chase card.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Another one that I saw again. I'm going to stick on the creature train was 6. So if you remember Ren and 6,
yep.
They made just 6. So 2 and a green, legendary creature, tree folk, reach.
Don't say that fast.
Don't tell me what to do. It's a 2/4. When 6 attacks, mill 3 cards. You may put a land card from among them into your hand. As long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. So, again, another cool thing they're doing with graveyard recursion, stuff like that. And
what is retrace for everybody?
It's not listed on this card, so I'll have to look it up.
While you're looking that up, I'll talk about something similar. It's called White of the Reliquary. It's a creature zombie knight with vigilance. It's a black and a green. So in case Sacrifice or Aristocrats wasn't powerful enough, it has vigilance because, why not? White of the Reliquary gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. So already good by itself. It's a 2/2. But no, it gets better. You can tap it, sacrifice another creature, which, by the way, that in and of itself is good because it's a sack outlet.
Right.
But no, it gets better. Hold on, wait. Search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle, and you get to keep doing that. So you sacrifice a creature, get a land, sacrifice a creature, get a land, and if you play any of the creatures that just come back, which there's many of them.
Yeah, especially in black-green.
You're just drawing a ton of lands right into your... We
don't need to look it up, but I would be willing to bet that there's something that says whenever a land enters the battlefield, you may bring this creature back to the battlefield or something similar.
Oh, yeah, for sure. In black-green, there probably is something.
Like the skeleton that you can just
reassembling skeleton, yeah.
Yeah, so...
So the retraceability is you can cast the card from the graveyard for its mana cost, plus the additional cost of discarding a land. So... you basically with 6 ability, because you get to put the land in your hand, you can then retrace the card immediately as long as you get the mana. And again, 6 is green, so he could go in that Necro Bloom I just mentioned.
Yep.
And so could that guy you just mentioned.
Green and black.
Yeah, because he's green black. So it sounds like they're doing a lot of graveyard love with MH3 so
Right
far.
of the Reliquary is not a legendary, so it won't be a commander.
No, but it can go in the Necrobloom deck because he's white, black, green.
Yep.
Which he cares about landfall, so then you put the land in and then create a creature, a token that you can then sacrifice to him.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, there you go. Necrobloom does it. Whenever a land comes into play, you create a token, so then you can then just keep resacking stuff. So,
yeah.
Yay, the cards aren't even out yet, and we're figuring out ways to combo.
So... Here's another one I like, Necro Dominance. This is black, black, black. And this is like Necropotence. Not quite as good, but still it's like a modern day Necropotence.
Necropotence is one of my favorite cards.
So this is another legendary enchantment. Skip your draw step. So far, just like Necropotence. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay any amount of life. If you do draw that many cards.
Wow.
Now, this one does have the further limitation that your maximum hand size is 5.
So you're losing hand size, but then you get to dig.
So
Right.
it literally is just necropotence.
Right, except that it's limiting your hand size.
Except it limits your hand
Who
size.
cares? You get the best 5 cards
Plus,
out
I'm
of 20.
pretty sure with timestamp, if you put out something later that says you have no maximum hand size, that overrides the
Wait,
limit
when do you get to draw them?
at your end step.
Just
Okay.
like necropotence.
All right.
But you
Yeah.
can't. You can only pay at your end step. Where necropotence,
You pay at the
any
beginning.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is crazy.
And then if a card or token would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead.
Wild.
So that's very similar to necropotence.
So I have an uncommon here, which is seems really good. It's called Meltdown, and this is really good given that treasures and food and clues and all that stuff. So it's X with 1 red sorcery. So that's sad that it's sorcery, but it's okay. It's still good. Destroy each artifact with mana value X or less.
Ooh,
Like,
That's-
how is that not automatically a staple?
That's gross.
And it's at the uncommon slot, so everybody's going to get a
can
hit.
you cast it for 0?
It doesn't say
X
you
can
can't.
be 0, yeah. So destroy
So-
each artifact with mana value X or less.
So 1 red, you can destroy
So
one.
0 or less. So
Yep.
yes.
So
One
any
red.
token artifacts, any of the 0 drops, I'll go bye-bye.
So if you guys have been listening to the last couple episodes, you know that I have been enjoying playing Calamax, which is my spell slinger. Flare of Duplication. 1 red,
Oh,
red.
boy.
Instant. You may sacrifice a non-token red creature rather than play the spell's mana cost. Copy target instant or sorcery. You may choose new targets for the copy. Yeah.
I think you do that quite enough. You don't need another way to do that.
But I need more. Actually, it's your fault. You gave me another card that gives me more, which I'm very excited to use one game because it's going to be hilarious.
Duncan, what else you got?
So this one is for Eldrazi. Okay, this one is Echoes of Eternity.
Oh, yeah.
So this is 3 and 3 colorless, not mana of any color, colorless mana. And it's a Kindred enchantment Eldrazi. So it used to be tribal enchantment, as now Kindred. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. When you cast a colorless spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. I just want to point out, Annihilator is a triggered ability.
Oh, golly day.
Yeah.
That is the worst.
Yep.
That's why I hate Eldrazi's. They're so dumb.
Well, and not only that, but you're making a copy of the colorless spell too. So that you're going to make 2, as long as it's not legendary, you'll make 2 of the Eldrazi.
Even if it is legendary, put in, what's it
Ridiculous.
called? Mirror Box.
Yep, which
Yeah.
is colorless.
Which is colorless.
Yeah, but there's
There's
no
an
guarantee
Mirror
you
Gallery.
have that. So.
Or Hell of the Host. So you can put it on a creature and then you just
Yep.
start spewing out copies of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
like that guy.
Yep. But
So there is one that
There is an interesting thing here, though. I don't
okay.
believe that the second ability triggers. So if you cast, who's the one who draws 4 cards? Eldrazi. If you cast that, it'll copy the draw 4 twice. But on the second spell, I don't believe the draw 4 cards happens for some reason. So we can look into that.
it would have to say specifically on the card is if you cast this from your hand, draw 4.
Oh, that's right. The cast trigger is why it doesn't happen.
yes,
right. That's if that's how it says it. So there's
No,
a card.
I think it says when you cast it. It wouldn't
Yes.
happen again just on an ATB, but what happens when you copy a permanent spell, it's just like casting the spell. You would get it if it's just a cast trigger.
Right.
You don't. From my understanding, is you don't get this. You get the copy of the triggered ability to draw 4 cards, so you'll get that twice. But on the copy of the actual Eldrazi, you will not get the draw 4 cards. It's my understanding. We can look into that to be sure. We'll follow up next week, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
So I want to point out this card. Someone mentioned it. I can't remember if it was at the shop or what have you over the weekend, but someone brought it up. I was like, there's no way this is going to be a real card because this is stupid if it is.
Famous last words.
This is a common. It's a 2/1 Evolution Witness, 2 and a green creature. 1 green, adapt 2. If this creature has no 1/1 counter on it, put 2 1/1 counters on it. Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters is put on Evolution Witness, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand.
I don't think that's that bad.
That's not that bad.
Yeah, except it's in green, which is
And it
infamous.
is, I mean, for a common, that's pretty good.
For a common. So, oh, great, you just killed it. I'm going to put a 1/1 counter on this. Great, I'm going to get that permanent right back to my permanent, not creature. It just says return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Any permanent.
It's very good
landfall.
for a
Like
color.
it's just silly. It's so silly, especially with it just being anytime you put a 1/1 counter on it. So you proliferate at the end of your turn, all attracts that. Boom, you get attracts a boom. Oh, you just killed my planeswalker. Great, I'm gonna put it back in my hand now.
This is a card.
I mean, oh, it's gross. That's so silly.
This is a card I'd like your guys' opinion on, specifically Duncan, who counters a lot of stuff because he has no character. Null Elemental Blast, 1 colorless. Now, I believe what's important on this is that you must have colorless specifically. So this isn't just you can't tap a red mountain to pay for this.
Yeah, it's specifically colorless.
Wasteland or a Soul Ring.
Yep. It says choose 1, counter target multicolored spell, or destroy target multicolored permanent. That seems ridiculous for 1 colorless mana.
No, it is. Just like blue elemental blast is ridiculous and red elemental blast is ridiculous.
Right.
Yes.
But those are more limited because they're.
Well, I mean, they target only a red or a blue.
Yeah, but this is any multicolored,
Right.
which
so
I feel like
anything
you're going
which
to come
has
across.
2 or more.
Right, which I feel like is going to be a lot more.
In Casual Commander, that's a lot of stuff.
It is, but so is a lot of blue things or a lot of red things. It is more, I think it is going to hit more targets, obviously, because it doesn't care which 2 colors.
Yeah, as long as
Also,
it's 2.
it's uncommon, so that's
Right.
great for those.
And by the way,
budget players.
the Vexing Bauble I did at the beginning was an uncommon as well. So some of these are just uncommons and commons. It's still very good.
Yeah.
I can't believe I only bought 1. I need to buy another box.
So
This is nuts.
it does look like they're bringing back the charge mechanic too, energy mechanic rather, with some cards they have that do some energy things. Whenever Tempest Harvester enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. Pay 1 energy, draw a card, then discard a card. So it looks like they're bringing back the energies. I don't know when they started. Do you know if they started energy
in Fallout.
No, it was a while.
No,
Oh, you mean originally?
Yeah, originally.
Oh, geez, that was back.
Way back.
It was before Aether
Someone
Revolt.
smarter than us might know the answer. To
Yeah.
that.
So it looks like they're bringing that mechanic back in this.
So I had one kind of fits into that.
Yeah.
But I didn't pick it for that, but it does have somebody. So Volatile Stormdrake, 1 and a blue. This is a rare. Flying, hexproof from activated and triggered abilities. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, that kind of goes on theme with the sword
Yeah, the sword
that came
from
out in
Thunder Junctions. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
baby.
thought that was very interesting. When Volatile Stormdrake enters the battlefield, exchange control of Volatile Stormdrake and target creature and opponent controls. So very like the Drake. What is it called? Something else Drake.
Gilded Drake.
Gilded Drake. Thank you.
The 2 and a blue, I think it is.
I mean, it's a new Gilded Drake, and Gilded Drake is a very expensive card.
Yeah, I think it's like a $500 card.
So this
ridiculous
is
$300
wow,
card.
but it's not done. If you do, meaning exchange control, you get 4 energy counters. Then sacrifice that creature unless you pay an amount of energy counters equal to its mana value. So in order to keep it, you have to have enough energy counters to keep it. But even if you just destroy it, they probably just didn't want them having it anyway.
Right, yeah, so it's kind of like listen, this is kind of like when we talked about you doing Oko with people. It's like, I'm giving you a 3/3 green elf. You can just elk. You just be like, oh, I'm giving you a 3/2 dragon.
It's even better than an elk.
Yeah, it's better than elk. It has wings and the picture's pretty. It's not a
Oh, and it has hexproof from activated and triggered ability.
yeah. There you go. People can't target it.
Nailed it.
You get a 3/2 Drake. So yeah, that's interesting. So maybe we're gonna start. Maybe this set they'll do a bunch of those.
I believe think they are. They're leaning heavily into energy for this one.
Well, not even just the energy, but I'm talking about like the unique style of protection instead of it being from a color. Maybe they're gonna start leaning more into that this set.
Well, we thought that on Thunder. I think they're just gonna like dribble these out throughout the year.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to see.
So here's one where like it's not the most powerful card in the game. It's not even probably one anyone's going to chase. But it's kind of a fun card. It's called, well, I wouldn't be able to play this because I don't know if I'm going to be able to say it. Ocelot Pride. It's a 1 white creature cat, first strike, life link, ascend. So if you have the city's blessing, 10 or more permanents.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Then if you have the city's blessing, for each token you control that entered the battlefield this turn, create a token that's a copy of it. So for 1 white, you're getting that ability. So if you have a cat deck or something like that, there's not enough cats out there, to be honest with you. in Magic. So this is a really powerful one, actually. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of neat that they put that in there.
Yeah, so it also looks like there's potentially some double-sided lands again.
Love those. Modal double-face lands.
But these are going to be a little bit different as before, where they were all more succinct. They were all like, it's either two-sided lands and you get to pick which one, either a forest or an island or something like that, or they're all creatures and then lands. It looks like these are going to be a little bit more sporadic. So we have one that's an instant in a land that's mono blue. We have one that's a blue or black land with instant on one side, and then we have another version that's a mono black that's a creature on one side and a land on the other. And I want to highlight the black one just because it's actually a callback, it looks like, to
that
kind
is
of
how
an
they
older
were
land
before too, though, Johnny.
Okay. So Bogart Trawler says it's a creature, 3/1, goblin. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. And then if you flip it over for the land side, when it enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters tapped. So it's a
untapped land.
It's an untapped land if you ping yourself for it, or it's a creature on one side that will exile somebody's graveyard. So,
very good. Yeah.
So it's good on both sides. One of them is search.
Which that's always was the issue with the land that did it, is it had to come in tapped.
Right, which is Bajuka Bog.
Yeah. So now you can have that ability, but not waste it on an untapped land if you need an.
And you get a
not
blocker.
waste it on a tapped land. Yeah.
Yeah, you get a blocker, or you just get a black land, and then the blue-black one's a dig spell, search your library for an instant card with flash, reveal it, put it in your hand, and it's a blue-black land on the other side. It comes in tapped. And then the mono blue one here that we found it's an instant return target spell or non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand.
Well, that's going in my deck.
Yes, it is. And then when you put it in the land side, as it enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters tapped.
So it is important for us to also say this, right? I know we said earlier, but just to remind people, we don't know if these cards are real.
Right. These are just leaks.
To be clear, they probably are, very likely, but we don't know for sure on some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but again, taking all this with a grain of salt, it definitely looks like I feel like there's 3 big things that they're doing. It looks like they're doing a lot of graveyard stuff. It looks like they're doing a lot of Eldrazi stuff, and it looks like they're doing a lot of energy stuff from the cards that we've already seen leaked.
Right.
So it looks like that. Hopefully, they don't spread themselves thin and they do too much of everything. And
so, do you have the moon one pulled up there, Jeff?
Yeah,
Okay.
Winter Moon. This is so gross. I'm going to remind everybody, this is not a commander set. This is a modern set.
100%.
Now, obviously, they're also got cards in here for commander, but if someone's like, why in the world? Well, because in modern, you'd very much, like, there's no problem playing these.
I am
cards.
Christopher Columbusing this set in honor of commander.
yeah, I will say there has been some backlash online of people saying, why did they build commander precons for a modern set? But that's not up for us to talk.
Just like all the other modern Horizons, this is Commander Horizons, let's be honest.
So many poor modern players. Winter Moon, it costs 2 colorless. Players can't untap more than 1 non-basic land during their untap steps. So, just be aware. This is why you have that Rule 0 conversation. There are some groups that play with cards like this.
Yeah, there is
some
0
groups that
chance
don't.
I'm not playing that card. That's the Rule 0 conversation.
Well, we are changing the slogan to kill Duncan first, so
yes,
you're very much living up to that.
No, we're not.
No, we are.
Because
Because the last time we played a game, I'm actually going to say it here, Johnny decided to leave Duncan alive and feel bad for him because he wasn't doing very well. And then as I'm about to win, Duncan decides to play Blood Moon and shut off my entire 4-color deck. Which, of course, you can have an opinion. I should have more basics, but it's a 4-color deck. It's very hard to play a lot of basics on that. But nonetheless, he shut it down, and I lost the game because Johnny decided to be merciful, which is never a good decision in Magic.
Which I just want to point out, he said that he was going to win the game, so it wasn't so much merciful as it was tactical to keep him from winning.
So he did exactly what he wanted to do. He kept you from winning.
I did.
Yeah, he helped Duncan win.
That's right. Which is the
actually
best
at the time though. I wasn't going to win. At the time, you were just keeping him alive. I don't know. You were just hoping there was another player in that game.
Well,
to help
you
spread
had
out
a
the
setup.
damage.
You had a setup, and I
had
saw
one other
the setup.
person, yeah.
And I was like, I can't let the setup continue.
So just funny story here. So I'm about to read the last card, right? The one I want to go over, the one that...
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what the heck? My alarm clock's on. And I try and swipe down on my phone to, no, this is how janky these are. This is somebody's screenshot from their phone that I have now had a picture on my phone. So that's how janky these leaks are.
Yourself.
Yes. So, so this one is the one that most recently has created the stir online as we're recording this. Ulamog the Defiler. This thing, I hope it's a lie. I hope this is not true. It is
Just
broken.
because you're saying that, I think if it is real, me and Jeff should both buy it and build decks and play that deck against you specifically.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
But it costs.
Well, I had an Eldrazi deck, and he used to get all bent out of shape about it. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
With the gauntlet?
More fun.
Yeah. No. Yes.
Yeah.
But this one costs 10 mana of any color, 10 generic mana. When you cast this spell, and it's legendary creature Eldrazi, when you cast this spell, target opponent exiles half their library rounded up. That's pretty good, right? Right, that's it, right? Like it's a 7/7.
It's an Eldrazi though, so of course there's like another paragraph with the text on it.
So okay, there's something else. So it has ward, sacrifice 2 permanent.
Jeez Louise.
I mean, that's it though, right? That's all it could possibly have.
It's an Eldrazi.
Because right there, that's 2 really good things.
No, it's an Eldrazi.
Okay, well wait, there is something else here. I see more text. Ulamog the Defiler enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. Well, that can't be much, right? How much is it? Oh, wait, you just exiled half their library.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's a 40?
No, the greatest mana value
No, greatest
of a
mana
card.
value of a card.
So
okay.
what pick a deck of yours. What would the highest mana value be in an average deck of yours?
Well, I'm a casual player, so probably... the highest? Out
Yes.
of all my decks?
Yeah. No, not of all your on average.
On average, probably 7.
7. Yeah. Okay, so it enters with 7 +1/+1 counters. So it's a 14/14 with when you cast a spell, they exile half their library and ward sacrifice 2 permanents. Surely that's it, right?
No.
That's the end of the
Have
card.
Annihilator.
Yeah. So it has Annihilator X, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it.
Why is this a card? Matt, Wizards of the Coast.
Wait,
who designed this card? Who hurt you?
Hold on. How much mana does this cost, though?
10 generic mana.
10.
Annihilator 7. That's wild.
But that's if you don't do anything else.
Yeah.
How about I play Deep Glow Skate and double the number of counters on it? How about doubling Seasons Out and you double the number of counters on it?
I mean,
Well,
I don't really think
it's
you
in a
need to do any
colorless.
of that. Just go ahead and
But
attack.
I mean, you know what you could
But
put. But you know what you
is
could
colorless.
put. Yep. But
It can go in any deck.
It can go in any deck. But I'm saying, like, if this was going to be your commander, because it is a legendary creature, I will say this though, and I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. Panharmonicon does exist, which means all that stuff is going to double. Because it's
the
an
ETB parts will. Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's what I'm saying. So those counters, you're not getting 7, you're getting 14. Yeah.
I believe because it says enters with. No, you're right. That
Yeah.
would,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But
gross.
guys, you don't,
So,
if it's 7 or 14, it doesn't matter.
yeah, it's just gross. Like, it's so silly. Like, why?
At
Like,
that point,
why?
you don't have to try to.
Now
make
that's
it
what you
more
put Helm of the Host on, right?
Yo, jeez Louise. Don't even, dude. Don't even joke about that. That's the stuff that nightmares are made of. Literally, they're all Eldrazi.
It
It's
is
literally...
it is an Eldrazi.
Oh,
So
God.
yeah, I mean
That's such a dumb card.
I feel like this has to be fake.
Please be
That is-
fake.
That is
Wizards,
too-
don't let this come out.
Actually, that seems right in line with most Eldrazi. To be honest with
No, with most, this would be the king of Eldrazi.
Yeah, this is like the Sliver Queen, like, all over again. It's like, why? Don't. Just,
I don't know. It's
no one built this deck. Show Wizards that we...
It's probably in the precon.
Yeah. If that's in the precon, I'm not playing Magic
I'm
anymore.
gonna be so happy. That precon
I'm not playing Magic
is
anymore. if that's
selling
in the
out in a
precon.
lot of places. So
Well, of course it is. Everyone wants to play Eldrazi's because, you know, who doesn't love making other people miserable?
Well,
like, that's
it's also
all
just
Eldrazi's do.
big splashy stuff. But we do need to keep going here because
Yeah.
we're
Okay, so
we're
just
running long
in
on
general,
this.
we were going to talk about. So how do we feel about this set?
I mean, they're definitely, again, misnaming this set. It should be Commander's Masters or Commander's Horizons, you know, or her whatever. But yeah,
Commander Love Fest.
Yeah, just it's gross. It's gonna if half of these are real, it's gonna be a great set for Commander. So
Jeff?
This is a very good set. Yeah, we're gonna have to see where prices go on all this stuff because unfortunately, some of these cards may be priced out for some people, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's the thing that makes me sad sometimes is people don't get to play with these fun cards because they just cost too much money.
If this is all real, this has got to be the most powerful set they've ever put out.
I mean, close to it.
I mean, I
will say, I will even put a caveat on it that they intentionally put out, because like some sets that came out a while ago, obviously like they're stronger now because of things they've added to the game and updated compared to when they came out, right? But yeah, overall, yeah, if this stuff is what's coming, unless this is all that's coming out, like if this is it, then great. But I have an eerie suspicion that that's not the case.
No.
So very good set for sure.
Well, it's definitely strong. I believe me, I'm looking forward to seeing some of this. I'm also not looking forward to seeing some of this. So we'll see what happens, but
For sure.
So let's move on to pro tips for beginners. So Sloan, talk to us about layers.
So yeah, just real quick, guys. Layers, we talked about it a little bit before, and we're gonna do a shallow deep dive. I know it's an oxymoron, but where this comes into play is Rule 613. Interactions of continuous effects. So layers specifically only talks about continuous effects. It doesn't talk about other parts of the game. It's only for continuous effects. So when you go to your play group and start trying to talk about layers, about it only applies if it's a continuous effect. So I don't think it applies for every mode of Magic. When it comes to the layers, there's 7 layers in total. And the way you go through them is in set order from 1 to 7. So layer 1, rules and effects that modify copyable values are applied. Then layer 2, control changing effects are applied. Layer 3, text changing effects are applied. Layer 4, type changing effects are applied. These include effects that change an object's card type, subtype, and or supertype. Layer 5, color changing effects are applied. Layer 6, ability adding effects, keyword counters, ability removing effects, and effects that say an object can't have an ability are applied. And then lastly, layer 7, power and or toughness changing effects are applied. So that is...
And within that, layer 7 gets broken down into 5 more steps.
Right. Well,
which we won't go into.
Each layer does have other steps.
Yeah, each layer has other steps, but this is the base point of where each layer starts, the 7 different layers. Timestamps come into effect, like Duncan said. If 2 things are on layer 6, which one came in first, essentially, is where timestamp happens. And that's what dignifies in the order in which they are going to be resolved.
Right. And so the way it works is when you're resolving effects, layer 1 effect happens first, blah, 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 layer 7 happens at the end.
Right. And so in the case of timestamps, the easiest way I can describe timestamps to you is the stack when you're casting stuff, right? Yep. So a timestamp essentially works just like the stack, is which card happened where, and then that is the timestamp of each card being played at what time. That's the easiest way to think of times. The layers, if you want to dig more into it, have at it. Just know it's a deep hole.
We're just showing you a tool you can use to try and help figure out how things work.
Yeah, and better, and make sure you guys are doing your actions correctly, and bettering the overall.
And maybe another
table.
point, we'll dive deeper into this. I don't know if we really will, because the deeper you dive, the more complicated it is.
Yeah, and it gets very complicated and convoluted, and it just gets more and more complex as you go into it. But as an overlay and an overview.
Just like everything else, the better you understand it, the less complex it gets. Like, once you start to understand it, it becomes a little easier.
So, but just like the layers, you have to take the layers off and decide how deep you want to go.
Yeah, take the layers off in layers in which you want to describe and go into layers on.
Or just ignore it and play the game.
Yeah. That's true, too. You could do that.
Hopefully you don't need this and everything just runs smooth and everybody agrees.
Yeah, just no one play any
if
continuous
you all play
effects.
wrong, but you all agree on how you play it, it still works out.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's about it for us for today. We thank you for joining us. A very, very special thank you tonight to Jack May of Info Pilgrims. We are actually recording on a day we don't normally record on, because the day we were going to record on, he was very, very sick. He is still slightly sick, but he pulled himself off his, not death, but almost deathbed.
Well, I mean, death bathroom floor.
Yeah.
It's a better way of describing
to do this.
Info Pilgrims.
from InfoPro.
They edit from their toilet.
Yeah.
But, big thank you to him. I know he's not feeling great, but I appreciate him doing this for us. You can email us at cast@commanderspod.com. Check us out at commanderspod.com. You can support us on patreon.com/commanderspod. And speaking of which, so one of our benefits that people have for being a top tier member is to be thanked in a very special way on this show.
That's right.
It is not me today. Today we're thanking our first top tier Patreon, Oliver.
Yeah.
So everyone, kill
Oliver first.